Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. What really happened? Let your boy Ego take you through it. Let you know what's going on, what went on in this fight. Now, this was a fun fight. Pretty electrifying towards the end, and not for a technical reason. Meaning, this wasn't a technical fight. This was more like a bar fight / street fight. Like Van Damme in Lionheart. Bah! Yeah. Towards the end of the fight, the gloves were off. But let me take you through some of the earlier rounds. Now, for me, I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And for me, the bad for Conor Benn is this particular fight was a lineage fight. It was a kind of a continuation because their fathers fought. So for me, I thought Conor Benn came out too hastily and he burned unnecessary energy. And in round one, he was just winging big home run style shots like he was the Terminator. Yeah, right? And you got to think about it. You are the guy moving up in weight. I understand, like, forget the father stuff, because in the ring, all that extra jazz doesn't matter. You're in the ring and your opponent's in the ring, and you got to come out of that safely and healthy and with the W, ideally, right? So none of the fathers and the backstory and all that, the bad blood, the trash talking, that doesn't matter when you're on the front lines. So you got to put that to the side. He, to me, Conor Benn, was burning and wasting unnecessary energy, and he was missing wildly, and he looked pretty sloppy to me, right? Where he was just winging big shots. Now, it wasn't that early rounds, first 2 rounds or so, Chris Eubank was doing a whole lot, but he was just boxing, and you could tell he had the greater experience, being in the World Boxing Super Series, things like that. The experience definitely showed for me on the Chris Eubank side early. He just seemed ultimately more composed in this fight, especially early on. I mean, I think experience came through for Chris Eubank even in the end, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So all in all, for me, I think that Conor Benn came out with a bad strategy. That is the bad. Very bad strategy where he was just him as a smaller person. You gotta be strategic in this game. You know what I mean? And I gotta give myself some credit. This is exactly what I was telling you about, why I don't like these fantasy fights where you got 2 different fighters that aren't in the same weight class, that aren't around the same weight class, and then you put them together. Because guess what? Most often it ends up like this. A lot of people try to fight me on this particular point, but it is what it is. People are like, oh, but Terrence Crawford and Canelo. This is why I don't prefer fights like this. This is why I wasn't super excited for this particular fight. Yes, you have 2 names. Yes, their fathers fought. But to me, it's kind of a reach and it's kind of a force, because Conor Benn at 147, he was able to put some guys down and put their lights out, like Chris Algieri and Van Herdeen and stuff like that. But at this new weight class, you seen Chris Eubank early was kind of just eating the shots, and it didn't have the same thump. So it might have had some respectable power, but when you're Chris Eubank and you fought true 168 pounders and true middleweights, you're used to taking big shots, and that's kind of what I seen. Now, what I did like from Chris Eubank Jr. is before the fight began, when the ref was giving his instructions, he really stared Conor Benn down. I thought that was a nice touch, and I just felt Conor Benn's early rounds was nervous energy. He was just like, this is kind of one of the problems with the father fights too. It looked like a kid trying to impress his father and or make his pops proud. That's how Conor Benn was fighting. Like, come on, Dad, watch me. Like, I want to live up. And you can't really think about all that. You got to just, because what's more important, capturing the dub or, you know, coming out all aggressive and sloppy, trying to prove a point? Like, it'd be better to win. That would, to me, if I was doing it for my pops, me winning would be more important than, a bad strategy. That's just my opinion. So all in all, the early rounds, Chris Eubank he was jabbing very nice. Now, then Chris Eubank, I want to say Conor Benn started getting more aggressive, having a little bit of success in maybe round 3 or 4. But here's the important thing too. When you do all that wild stuff and that nervous energy and you like off balance and winging like big home run shots, you're not necessarily having the effect that you want. The bad thing is, unless you're on something, it's very hard to sustain that for that pace and that volume in boxing in the second half of the fight. If you've just been doing the all fight, especially the higher you go up in the weight class. Now you look at some of the booger weights and, mucus weights and some of the smaller guys, maybe they can throw 150 punches per round and keep that up to 12. But at middleweight, very hard to do. You know what I mean? Especially when you're a small guy coming up, especially when you're getting punched in the face and body by somebody bigger. So what I noticed was that Conor Benn flattened out dramatically around round 5, right around that. He was more flat-footed and he was forced to settle down. All that stuff, you didn't get an early knockout, which is the problem with that. You didn't get the early knockout, and now you're forced to reduce the pace and the volume. And to me, that's where Chris Eubank was doing some very good work. Now, Conor Benn, at some point after round 5 or 6, I think he started to feel that he was kind of behind, and then he got some stuff going. He was aggressive, and he kind of lured Eubank into the wrong style of fight. And Eubank was kind of having an in close quarters shootout, and there was a moment, I don't remember the exact round, I gotta watch it again, but there was a moment in one of these rounds where it looked like Conor Benn clipped Eubank and his leg kind of buckled, right? And that was a good moment, and then he tried to build off of that. For me, the ugly goes to UK media and broadcasters and the network. Their commentary is bloody awful. It is awful, mate. Bang, mate. It's bad, bro. It's a mean thing, bro. It's a bad thing, because they are insanely biased to the point where I don't even know if they know they're being biased when they're being biased. It's like somebody from the block or whatever, or your school, and they're a liar, and they start believing their own lies. Like, I'm a martial artist, and they're really not a martial artist. Yeah, I've been doing Kenpo since I was in 1st grade, and it's not true. And they start to believe that they're a martial artist or something, even though it's not true. That's what the UK commentary is. Horrible, bro. They are insanely biased. What I was hearing is a lot of pro Benn stuff, like almost like they wanted Benn to win, and I thought Eubank handily won. Like, a lot of people, spoiler alert, Eubank won unanimous decision. And I seen a couple of people crying about that. Oh, how could they? And it was too wide for me. I don't know what fight you were watching. Eubank, out of 12 rounds, definitely won more rounds than Conor Benn did. So the UK bias was crazy. But Benn had the speed, and he was winging some of these shots and stuff like that. There was one round where he landed some very good body shots later in the fight. That was Conor Benn. And you seen Eubank, all of a sudden, in the second half of the fight, he looked spent. He looked like a spent shell casing. He looked completely gassed and exhausted. And I told you guys to be mindful, because I think Chris Eubank Jr. is weight drained. I think making that 160 was a chore. I seen videos of him, and he had sweaters and thermals and blankets, and he was laying on the ground, and they probably had the heater on and all this stuff. So making 160 was definitely a challenge for Eubank Jr. And I think in the back half of the fight, it showed, because there were some rounds later in the fight where Eubank looked like his body language was looking bad to me. It was looking real bad. Like, his body language, he was like leaning over and he was trying to grind, but he looked like he had absolutely no no energy to continue. He was just like bad form. He just lost his form completely. And I think in those moments that Conor Benn, you know, he had some success because he's the younger fighter moving up. The weight cut wasn't a problem for him. He came under the weight. So I think, to be honest, if this fight happened a couple years ago when it was supposed to, and I think the weight cut probably would have been easier for Chris Eubank, I really think it would have been worse, because there are some things. I watched Chris Eubank's career, and when he was in the World Boxing Super Series, and, you know, unfortunately what happened with Nick Blackwell and stuff like that, he looked more snappy, and like his jab, he had a vicious uppercut, and he was just super relentless. So I think this should be be done unless they could fight at a higher weight class. But the 160, I think Chris Eubank need to leave that alone. You won it. You put respect on the Eubank name. I think he should leave 160 alone, unless they do it like real soon. And I don't even want to make exceptions. I think they should leave 160 alone, because Eddie Hearn tried to play Chris Eubank. They also had a rehydration clause, whereas like a lot of people, I'm not going to get into it, but people hate on Gervonta Davis for having weight clause in certain fights. Ryan Garcia, completely different. Ryan Garcia is a young fighter. He was like 23 to 25 or whatever age he was when he fought Tank. You should be able to make weight, bro. You know, but Chris Eubank, not the same case. Inactivity, dry spells, switching promoters, not that many fights in several years, and he's 35 years old. That's completely different trying to make weight. You could do and get along well and deal with pushing your bodies through the rigors of a brutal camp easier. Your recovery can be easier in your 20s. I mean, just think about it. Like, I used to do stuff where I got 30 minutes of sleep and then worked a full 8-hour job and then worked out at the gym. I can't do that now. You know what I mean? I can't. There's no way off of 30 minutes I'll be miserable. You see what I'm saying? So as you get older, as you age, mature and stuff, certain things that you might have been able to do become harder. Look at people who are heavy drug users or alcohol abusers. Like, you drank 24-pack when you're 21 years old to the face, and then you're cool, but you might start getting health complications if you keep that up and you're excessively drinking, you know, cirrhosis and different things like that. So yeah, I think if this would have happened a couple years ago, it would have been even easier for Eubank personally, because what I seen, he still had enough to win. I thought he won. I thought the right man won. I don't think it was as close as some of y'all. See, y'all don't score. A lot of y'all don't score. You go solely on emotion and how the rounds made you feel and stuff. I actually scored the fight. And if you score the fight, Eubank won more rounds out of 12. Now, a pivotal moment for Eubank for me was he captured the championship rounds, the actual round 11 and 12. I thought he definitely won. So round 10, I think, was the round where he was looking bad. It looked like he was just going to fall out from exhaustion. It's like somebody who got off the treadmill from doing sprints or something, and they were losing their form in the last 5 minutes, and then the cool down finally happened. He just looked bad. He was wilting. He was just like leaning over and wilting, trying to get something going. But I don't know what got into him in round 11 and round 12. It's just like he summoned something and he went into a different gear and had a lot of success, and he definitely won rounds 11 and 12. In round 12, it looked like he was about to stop Conor Benn, right? Conor Benn was getting punished and hit with big shots, and Chris Eubank was just willing himself through. So that was a good touch, and it was fun to watch that a guy who is completely exhausted was just pushing himself and pushing the tempo and the pace. And Conor Benn was trying to fight back, but he lost the 12th round big to me. His head was popping up like a Pez dispenser, and he was just getting teed off on and getting pushed against the ropes trying to work. And that's the story of a lot of the fight in the later rounds. Even though you had a weight drain and exhausted Chris Eubank Jr., he was still pushing the pace, and he was burrowing and grinding through the smaller man and like pushing him back and like smothering it. And Conor Benn, he doesn't really have an answer for that. He didn't know how to stop the bigger man from imposing his will and like grinding him down. Pause. That was a inexperienced thing where Chris Eubank, he's probably been in the bigger moments. He's probably been tired in fight, and you got to get something going. You got to figure something out and go to that second energy reserve. It looked like Ben didn't really have any answers. So fun fight. Wasn't really a technical fight, but definitely something to watch. The undercard sucked. There were no knockouts or anything, but the main event was cool. I liked it. And I thought Ben was getting tagged up. Ben definitely lost. He took it like a champ, I would say, him and his dad. And Eubank gave him some respect post-fight, like, oh, he was better than I thought kind of thing. And I didn't think he could bring another side of me out. But, you know, I think this fight should end here unless they're going to fight closer to super middleweight, because that was rough. And I think it has a lot more to do with the weight cut than anything else. You know, post-fight, Conor Benn was saying he could fight at 160. I disagree. I think he'll get tore up at 160 because he was just winging big shots. He's not the tallest guy. 160 would be awful for him. I don't even know if he would have success at 154. You can't fight like that because, again, you had a weight drain, in my opinion, a weight drain Chris Eubank, and he was teeing off on you and summoning power out of nowhere, and you had your hands full with that. So imagine a guy like Murtazaev who's more technical and crisper shots at 54. You know, this would be a tall order, or Sebastian Fundora, and you way shorter than him. So I don't know. I think he should go back to 47, but it's up to him. Let me know what you guys think. And that's what really happened.